Right, and thank you so much for staying with the News Center. Let's continue with our conversation on war on drugs, and the government has already begun a crackdown on the same. And yesterday, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying that they do not really blame the law enforcers because there was no political direction, and that now takes us to the next question, Fabian, on how important it is that governments or the government is involved in this, and what role should it play to ensure that the fight against drug and substance abuse is a success?
Thank you so much, Purity. Now more than ever, the government must actually marry their words to action. And we're talking about substantive actions. Yes, the initiative being driven in Nakuru and elsewhere, they're a wonderful initiative, but there is something to be done beyond that. We need that the government must set a policy ground in which, for instance, we are in the financial year. Everybody is talking about increasing of taxes. But the government this year, the same government, has not increased taxes on alcohol substance and tobacco substance. On the other side, they are actually removing what I just said earlier, inflation adjustment, which is a powerful tool to actually even prevent initiation into this abuse. So as we talk about cracking down the war on drug abuse, then the government must come back and tell us actually we are adapting the fiscal measures. This year, in the celebration of World No Tobacco Day, we are talking about we want food, no tobacco. And there are wonderful initiatives being driven in Migori, where at least 2,000 farmers who previously grew tobacco are shifting to food farming. We want to tell the government that there's an opportunity to actually go in Migori and encourage that behavior. Go in, because when you talk about drug abuse, we are not just talking about consumption stage. We are actually going to the root cause of the problem, the production stage. So if the World Health Organization has seen some good initiative by international community in happening in Migori, the government must go in and give subsidies. You see, the other coin is that these multinational corporations which encourage this consumption, they give subsidies like fertilizers to those farmers and a lot of subsidies. We're telling the government now, use the tools you have to action. Use the law to increase taxes. Use the law to retain inflation adjustment on these. Use the law to encourage the shift of tobacco farming to food farming by those farmers in Migori and somewhere else in this country. Yeah,
and Joe, let's talk about the drugs that are commonly abused in the country, and you could tie that with how bad is a problem. I mean, where are we as a country as far as abusing drugs and substances is concerned?
Yeah, the situation has continued to worsen, as we see. And unfortunately, there are those who are coming up with the figures to show that the situation is improving. So we wonder where they get these figures, like the percentages of those who smoke are coming down, the percentages of those who use these various drugs is coming down, and that's not the case. These figures are going up every other time, with the most abused being alcohol in various parts of the country. When you go to Western, especially, you'll find the Western region, there is a lot of consumption of illicit brews, but these brews are normally manufactured from foodstuffs such as maize, millet, and others. So they are not as harmful as they are in the central region, where they are mainly manufactured from poisonous substances. You find even formalin, jik, being mixed with whatever they are making. And that's why people get more problems in central region compared to Western. But we have seen so many people die, even teachers and others. And this is unfortunate. Somebody was saying that if fellows are not given jobs, young people, then nobody should expect them to stop using these illicit brews and drugs, which is wrong, because we are losing even professionals. People even fail to go to work because they are drunk, they are alcoholic. So the situation is bad when it comes especially to alcohol, and then tobacco follows. So many fellows are using tobacco products, and not just smoking, but we have these smokeless tobacco products. We have e-cigarettes, oral nicotine pouches, among others. And then shisha is also still coming up.
And it was banned.
It was banned.
Yeah.
So you wonder, what are we talking about? Why should we say we can't blame so and so? All the law enforcement agencies are supposed to be at work. So shisha is back. And then the bad thing here is that even as the DP talks about not having been their political direction, he ought to know that it is the politicians that normally even give wrong signals to these young people. Like when they go to places like Meru, Tarakanita, and then they chew mira and promise people there that they are going to find a market for them. You will find those who chew mira are the same people who smoke, the same people who drink. So any of the drugs that is allowed is normally a gateway. People use that. Those who start smoking or those who start chewing mira or start drinking alcohol graduate to other drugs.
Yeah.
It becomes very easy. So tobacco is something that is really being used by even children as young as 6 years. And when we talk about tobacco in general, we are referring to all nicotine and the tobacco products, which are now being used everywhere. So the situation is getting worse even as the DP is talking, because like now there is velo everywhere. People, young fellows are using this drug, and yet it came as lift. Then when we made noise, it was deregistered because it had been registered irregularly by the Poisons and Pharmacy Board. And now it has re-emerged, but with a different name, without having met the conditions that were put there by the cabinet secretary. And therefore, so many young people are giving into this addiction. And that is why you are seeing so many cases of mental problems here and there because of these kind of things. Then there is bank, marijuana, which was made really popular by Wajakoya and the group. You know, fellows now want to see what is this that looks so popular. So young people want to be associated with it, and they are looking for it. No wonder in one of the places down in Busia, just about 2 months ago, primary school kids, standard 5, were found with the rolls of bank. You see? As young as that, because fellows are now feeling that they should go into these things, and then we are justifying by saying that they are doing that because of the problems they have. And then our borders are very porous. So we are getting a lot of funny things from outside, like this shisha, whatever. These things are coming from Ethiopia, from Uganda, from other places entering this country, and we keep on asking, what is happening? But,
and Fabian, apart from the political goodwill, what would you say are other major hindrances towards the successful fight against drug and substance abuse in any country?
I think research is quite integral. And not just mere research, but also the publication of that research. And I think that's also the media comes in, that the media must be very vocal in actually being interested on what is being researched and what are the outcomes. Some of these researches are actually genuine because they are scientific, and we believe they are factual on that context. So it is something of a perception change, and I'm linking research and the media, that the media, the same way people will always say somebody who was advocating cannabis, the same way the media can come in. There is more to do also in this fight, also the capacity building of community-based organization at grassroots levels, because they actually not only have the facts, but even they can know the specific people who are either suffering out of it or in need of help. That is also very, very important. And also another aspect, and which is increasingly being discussed in countries like Australia, Canada, is access to medical services. There are those who are actually, more so those who have been addicted, and they could see the pain and the need of counseling, the need of medical services to be guided on how they can actually stop the addiction which they have plunged themselves into. And generally what we could say, where as young people, and I think this should not be a one-week show, because as we always each year annual go to 31st, there is, as my chairman has just indicated, initiation problem, experimenting problem by young people. How can this be curbed? You see, it is not just by threats, whether those people must be cracked down. It is more of educational approaches. It is more of changing the landscape, of encouraging somebody and showing that these are the ills of this perspective than just scaring. Scaring, of course, can do its own long way to change perception, but also we believe that education is the tool which can change the mind and the behavior, more so to save the young people, the 5-year-old, from further experimenting, from further initiating into those drug abuse.
Yeah, and Joe, yesterday the CS likened drug abuse to an act of terrorism. Maybe now we can talk about the consequences of drug abuse in the country.
Yeah, he was very right, because those who bring in drugs especially target young people, because it's hard to find a mature person starting maybe to drink or to use shisha or hashish, cocaine, those kind of things. You can't find mature people now starting unless they have some problem. And when you now look at the country, you find that we have so many cases of suicide, even among very young people, homicide, people are killing each other, gender violence really gone up. Like even just the other day I was being told of a man who killed his wife because he was under the influence of drugs. You find young fellows after they have used maybe marijuana, raping even their grandmothers. You look around and you see all these things happening, and you can attribute them to drugs. And then apart from that mental problem, because we are talking about 1 out of every 4 Kenyans having a problem, which is really, really an issue, even in schools, when you hear students attacking teachers and teachers killing students, those things you will find that they have got something to do with drugs and what have you. And then it comes to productivity. Fellows who are using drugs, who are alcoholic, they cannot work well. That's why we are saying a drug-free nation is a wealthy nation. People have the ability to work. You remember the late Kibaki saying is tusiwe taifa la kunywa pombe, kulewa ovyo na kuregarega. People who are drunk, people who are on drugs cannot be productive. So that is denying the country a lot of what we could have really gained out of a healthy nation. And there are so many diseases now. Cancer has really shot up. You find now hospitals have got so many cancer problems. And these things are attributed to smoking, to drinking alcohol, and use of other drugs. So that disease burden is very heavy on the country as a result of using drugs. Then you find security is at a risk, because people who are on drugs are a security risk. Every time when people are on drugs, you know that the problems are there.
And Fabian, let me engage you on the day tomorrow, World No Tobacco Day, and the theme is we need food and not tobacco. Probably you can highlight some of the areas that tobacco farming is ongoing in the country and the threat it poses. That's why we are looking at now having alternative crop production. How is this alternative crop production important, and what is the threat being posed by tobacco farming in the country?
Thank you so much, Purity. Just as to lay a basis for this, the move, the shift, the calls for alternative instead of tobacco is actually under Article 17 of this Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. It's now 18 years in action as we are speaking right now. It will mark 20 years in 2025. Article 17 called that as we, advocate for a reduction of tobacco consumption, let us also now go what I was saying to the root cause of it. Let us kill the problem from the genesis of it. And Kenya, in Migori is quite dominant, and actually from the facts, Kenya farming of tobacco is about 15,400 hectares. That's quite a huge land. In Migori, we are seeing, as I indicated, 2,000 farmers who initially were into tobacco farming, and they have actually come to the realization of key facts. Number one, tobacco farming is expensive. Tobacco farming is not profitable. And tobacco farming is propelling, even if you are farming, not consuming, but it's having side effect, ill health on the person, also children, pregnant women. And lastly, tobacco farming, because of the heavy fertilizers, is causing environmental degradation. And now when Migori, Kenya being the landmark for this shift of Article 17, shifting from tobacco farming to food farming, we are seeing a lot of progress to it, a very perfect one, as I indicated. That's why the head of the Secretariat of FCTC is actually in the country, and the celebration worldwide, they are being centered in Migori. So that it could be the beacon of hope, not only to Kenya, but to East Africa, which contributes 85% of production of tobacco in the whole of Africa. So that's how so Kenya, Migori being a position to be the beacon of hope. Lastly, to say, to comment on the issues of this transition, we are in a crisis where we are advocating for food in the whole world. If my memory serves right, this government, the promises was on food. Now, there's an opportunity to transform fertile soil of 15,000 hectares, which has been dominantly been tobacco farming, and bringing poverty on tobacco farmers, and help those farmers transition to food. Beans, maize, that can serve alone. The government can benefit, that one alone can make a stride on trying to solve the food crisis, because the soil in Migori is quite fertile.
Yeah, we have to wrap it up. Joy, please allow me in 20 seconds. Welcome, Joel, because you said in 20 seconds, make it 20 seconds. Part of the awareness program by the WHO and other organizations is to expose how the industry is interfering with this alternative crop production. Maybe you can tell us how the industry is interfering with this?
Yeah, the industry is doing this by promising farmers better returns on whatever they are producing, and even going further to help to promise them to pay school fees for their children, to build schools or classrooms for them. They are promising even the county governments of those areas assistance in some way, so that they cooperate with them, and that they are also bribing even agriculture officers, health officers, so that these people do not do the work that they are supposed to be doing there. And then sometimes they buy off those inputs like seeds. When there are somewhere farmers are supposed to buy them, they find a way of buying everything. So when farmers go for the seeds, they are not there. You see, those are some of the ways that they are using, apart from using the media to propel wrong information.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, and thank you so much, Joy, for your patience with us this morning as we held a conversation on war on drugs. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Purity Museonzuki. Keep watching KTN News. Up next is an Jiri.